this land at your feet?
Not well. Not well. It's just crazy. Let me go to the first and most important thing. I do think the Eagles will be able to withstand and overcome this. I think they're at the point, I said it last week, they're just ignoring it. Especially, for sure, as long as they keep winning. Now, if they start losing again, it could become a problem. But right now, I think their attitude is just, he's the boy that cried wolf. We just not even worried about it. We just gonna go on, yeah. If they're asked about it, I would just be like, yeah, that's AJ, but he's our guy. We love him, I don't think they're gonna let this ruin them. All right, that's number one. For AJ, I gotta be honest. I think he's wrong. But I do understand, we've talked about it before, I get a wide receiver, particularly a Hall of Fame caliber wide receiver, or close, wanting to put up numbers and wanting to get his individual shine, especially when he already has a ring. Now, all players, particularly star players like that, guys that have that ability, they want to shine individually. But there are times when you have to put that in, you have to have that be submissive to the team's success. And so what I would say to AJ is this year, you got to make it submissive to the team's success. And then after this season, if I'm the Eagles, I'm looking to trade him. Now, I'm not giving him away. I want to get a good return, and I want to get a receiver who's close to his caliber because they're rolling. Even if they win the Super Bowl, chances are they're not going to win 3 straight. Nobody's ever done it. So that would be a year where you could trade him and get, something for him. But I get, like I said, I think they're moving past it and not going to let it stop them. But this over time will become aggravating. As you were bringing up, you might bring up Joe Buck with Troy Aikman on the broadcast. It seems that maybe something's there with Jalen.
And again, I'll trust your knowledge of, I don't know if the boy who cried wolf is a biblical parable, but it's a parable. No. But this isn't quite the boy who cried wolf because he is seeing a lot of wolves. What he's complaining about is not fake. He is complaining that now using me and not using me was an instance where that was fake. This is outrageous how he is being used, and it's outrageous what he's doing. I find both things ridiculous. I find it totally ridiculous that the Philadelphia Eagles cannot figure out how to use A.J. Brown, and unlike last year, you can't say, well, everything's humming the way we're doing it. They had 0 points at halftime. They had 0 points at halftime. He had 2 targets for 13 yards. They came out of halftime and targeted him less. He didn't have another target to play they shouldn't have run.
Saquon isn't.
And Saquon's not killing. Right. So now they did sign up for this. And I'm very interested in, we now know the Bills wanted to trade, we're willing to trade a first-round pick and something for Jalen Waddle. Now, they're very different receivers, but I think A.J. Brown is clearly better than Jalen Waddle. And so, I think it's reasonable to say Philadelphia could have gotten a first-round pick for A.J. Brown had they made him available. If you're not going to make him available, how do you not come out of the bye after the deadline with a real plan in place to use him?
Let's dive into a complex and fascinating situation unfolding in the NFL. One that sits at the intersection of roster strategy, on-field performance, and locker room dynamics. I want to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, the utilization of their superstar wide receiver A.J. Brown, and the broader implications for a team with legitimate championship aspirations. First, let's address a strategic point that seems to be overlooked in the immediate reaction to the recent trade rumors. The decision to trade a player of A.J. Brown's caliber isn't a binary now or never proposition. The option to move him, potentially for a valuable asset like a first-round draft pick, would still have existed after the current season concluded. This season, right now, holds tangible value for the Philadelphia Eagles. They are a team built to compete, with a roster that, on paper, has the potential to make a deep playoff run and challenge for the ultimate prize. To willingly sideline a weapon of Brown's magnitude for the remainder of a campaign that is very much alive would be a curious strategic choice. The primary focus for a contender should be maximizing its potential in the present, utilizing every tool at its disposal to win games. Preserving a key asset for the future at the direct expense of current competitiveness is a move typically reserved for teams in a rebuilding phase, not one that fancies itself a Super Bowl threat. Now, I find myself in agreement with the underlying sentiment expressed by many analysts, including figures like Nick Wright, who suggest that the Eagles' offense must find a way to better integrate A.J. Brown into its weekly game plan. He is simply too talented and too impactful a player to become a peripheral figure. The core challenge, and the needle that needs to be threaded here, is finding a way to force-feed him the ball and intelligently designing ways to leverage his unique skill set for the benefit of the entire offensive unit. To understand the peculiarity of this situation, consider a hypothetical. If the Eagles' receiving core was composed of Devonta Smith, Saquon Barkley, and Dallas Goedert, and the passing distribution showed a heavy concentration to just those three players, the conversation would be different. We might be discussing Jalen Hurts' progression through his reads, the importance of spreading the ball around, and the need to involve secondary options. The critique would be about an offense that is overly reliant on its top three weapons. But that's not the case. The player being seemingly phased out is not a role player. It's A.J. Brown, a man consistently ranked among the top wide receivers in the entire league. This isn't about getting the ball to Billy Bob Johnson. It's about getting it to a certified game changer. A counter-argument has emerged in some circles, suggesting that Brown may have lost a step, that his ability to separate from elite cornerbacks isn't what it once was. This narrative posits that many of his targets have devolved into 50-50 jump balls, and that Jalen Hurts, in his evolution as a quarterback, has become more risk-averse. Hurts' improved decision-making, a key factor in his development, now leans towards avoiding throws into tight coverage, which in turn may be limiting the opportunities for Brown. There is likely some truth to this. Quarterback development often involves learning when not to force a pass. However, even if we accept these points as valid, it doesn't absolve the coaching staff of their responsibility. There has to be a middle ground. There must be schematic solutions to get the ball into the hands of your best playmakers that don't rely solely on him winning a one-on-one deep ball. Why not design more wide receiver screen passes to get him the ball in space with room to run? What about jet sweeps or creative handoffs? Look at the inventive play design that got Saquon Barkley the ball on that memorable spin move reception. Could a similar concept not be drawn up for Brown? The goal isn't to recklessly force him the ball 15 times a game, potentially disrupting the offensive rhythm. The goal is to integrate him more seamlessly and consistently into the offensive fabric, creating high-percentage opportunities that allow his talent to shine. Complicating this on-field issue is the off-field dimension. A.J. Brown's decision to voice his frustrations publicly, whether on a social media stream or through other channels, is undeniably messy. It creates unnecessary external noise and puts additional pressure on the entire organization. I fundamentally disagree with this approach. There is a professional protocol for these matters. A fantastic perspective on this was offered by Aaron Rodgers a few weeks ago. When asked about receivers complaining about targets, he stated that he welcomes those conversations, but he prefers to have them in the film room. His approach is, let's watch the tape together. Show me where you were open and I missed you. Let's have a constructive dialogue about it. One has to wonder if that level of detailed, private collaboration is happening in Philadelphia between Hurts, Brown, head coach Nick Sirianni, and offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. Is the issue that Brown is getting open and Hurts is unwilling to pull the trigger? Or is it a deeper schematic problem where the play designs simply aren't putting him in positions to succeed? This isn't a new concern. Last season, even under a different offensive coordinator, there were whispers about this very issue. Cornerback Darius Slay notably commented that A.J. Brown has to work harder than any other receiver because he's constantly tasked with simply beating his man rather than being schemed open like other elite receivers such as Justin Jefferson. This is a profound observation. It suggests a fundamental philosophical difference in how the Eagles' offense is constructed versus other top units. Look at a player like Travis Kelce in Kansas City. The entire football world knows Patrick Mahomes wants to get him the ball, especially in critical moments. Yet, time and again, Kelce finds himself astonishingly wide open. This is not a coincidence. It's a product of brilliant scheme and design. In contrast, the Eagles' offense, with all its talent in Brown, Smith, Goedert, and Barkley, often appears stagnant, with receivers struggling to create consistent separation. That is a significant coaching and schematic problem that transcends any single player's performance. It is critically important to acknowledge that multiple truths can coexist in this situation. The Eagles have, for the most part, been winning games. Jalen Hurts has played efficient, smart football and has made clutch plays when needed. The team has battled through injuries, particularly along the offensive line, which has impacted the run game. All of this is true. However, it is also true that for a team with Super Bowl ambitions, simply winning regular season games is not the only barometer of success. The offense needs to be able to peak in the playoffs. Last season, despite a successful regular season, the passing game needed to be the engine that drove them through the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. It was in those very games that Jalen Hurts had to put the team on his back and make monumental throws. You cannot rely solely on a grinding, efficient offense to win a championship in today's NFL. You need a dynamic, explosive passing attack that can carry you when the run game is stymied. This is why a performance like the one against the Green Bay Packers, where the offense was completely shut out, is so concerning. Yes, the Packers have an elite defense. Yes, the Eagles were dealing with injuries, including to stalwart tackle Lane Johnson. But championship-caliber teams find a way to be resilient. They adapt. They scheme up a few big plays. You look at a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who can put up points in bunches even when missing a key weapon like CeeDee Lamb, and it raises questions about the Eagles' offensive ceiling. Every game is different, of course, and direct comparisons are often flawed. But the expectation for an offense with this much talent is that it should not be so thoroughly neutralized, and a player of A.J. Brown's stature should not be so easily erased from a game plan. Amidst all this, the notion of questioning the front office acumen of general manager Howie Roseman is almost laughable. His track record for aggressive and often successful roster construction is among the best in the league. Furthermore, the idea that winning one or even two Super Bowls would somehow preclude a team from winning a third is a bizarre and limiting belief. My stance on going back-to-back is consistent and separate. I don't believe the difficulty of repeating should be a primary topic of discussion until a team is actually in a position to do so. The current focus should be on solving the very tangible problems facing the team right now. The court of public opinion on A.J. Brown's actions is split. One side labels him a diva for speaking out, while the other applauds him for demanding the ball. The reality, as it often is, lies in the nuanced middle. He is correct in his fundamental assertion. He needs to be more involved in the offense for the team to reach its full potential. He is incorrect in his method. Airing this grievance publicly is unprofessional and creates a distraction that helps no one. The path forward for the Eagles is one of constant improvement, a mandate that applies to every team from the Patriots to the Chiefs. The defense needs to tighten up, and the offense must find a new gear. Perhaps the root of the issue lies primarily with offensive coordinator Kellen Moore's scheme. Perhaps there is a more uncomfortable truth that some have hinted at, that Jalen Hurts' passing abilities, while improved, still limit the full scope of the playbook. This is a delicate but necessary conversation. Let's consider the cutthroat nature of the Eagles organization, led by Roseman. If the internal belief was that Hurts' limitations were genuinely capping the team's ceiling, this is one of the few franchises that would have the ruthlessness to genuinely consider a change, even after a Super Bowl victory. They are a profoundly transactional organization, driven by a "what have you done for me lately" ethos. They handed Hurts a massive contract, fulfilling their financial obligation. If they believed a quarterback like, for instance, Tanner McKee, who showed flashes in the preseason, offered a higher upside for a more expansive passing offense, they would not let sentimentality stand in the way of exploring that option. The fact that they haven't, and that Hurts remains the unequivocal starter, is a powerful, albeit silent, endorsement of his capabilities from within the building. It suggests that the primary issue is more likely schematic than a fundamental deficiency in the quarterback's talent. In conclusion, the Philadelphia Eagles find themselves at a critical juncture. They are a good team with the potential to be great, but they are being held back by an offensive puzzle they have yet to solve. The A.J. Brown situation is the most visible symptom of a larger issue involving scheme, quarterback play, and offensive philosophy. How they navigate this, how they get their premier receiver more involved without destabilizing the locker room or forcing the offense, will define their season. It's a delicate balancing act, but it's the kind of challenge that separates good teams from true champions. I am deeply interested in your perspective on this multifaceted issue. Where do you stand on the A.J. Brown debate? Do you believe the problem is primarily with the coaching scheme, with Jalen Hurts' distribution of the ball, or with Brown himself? How concerned are you about the Eagles' offensive ceiling based on what we've seen so far? Please, share your detailed thoughts in the comments below. I make it a point to read every single comment, and whether you agree with my analysis or have a completely different take, I value the discourse. Let's engage in a thoughtful discussion. Let's debate the intricacies of the game, and most importantly, let's share our passion for the NFL. If you appreciate this kind of in-depth, nuanced breakdown of the league's most compelling stories, please consider subscribing to the channel. We are cultivating a community here that values intelligent conversation and a deep dive into the X's and O's, beyond the surface-level hot takes. I want to build a space where we can all connect over a shared love for the strategic complexity of football. We are well on our way to creating that environment, and I would be thrilled to have you as a part of it. If you found this analysis valuable, please don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. It genuinely makes a significant difference in helping us grow and connect with more dedicated fans. Thank you so much for your time, your engagement, and your passion for the game.